Hi, I'm Maya, and this is my husband Thomas, and today we want to talk about Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. So Thomas had the idea to challenge each other to read one of the other one's favorite YA books. Right? Was that the challenge?
Well, I don't know if I specified YA, but once you suggested Six of Crows, I tried to pick sort of the equivalent from books that I enjoyed at the YA age.
So we will talk about the other book in another video.
Yes.
So stay tuned. That will be up on my channel. But first, right now, we're just going to talk about Six of Crows. So, brief synopsis. It's basically a heist book. There's a team of 6. It's a fantasy world. It's the same fantasy world that the Grisha trilogy is set in, also by Leigh Bardugo. You don't really have to have read the trilogy.
I have not read anything by Leigh Bardugo. Hadn't read until I read Six of Crows.
And that's how I was too. This was the first Leigh Bardugo book I ever read, and now I've read them all because I love her. But yeah, this is a fine way to enter the Grishaverse. You don't have to start with Shadow and Bone. So yeah, what did you think?
I liked it. I don't read a lot of YA. This was definitely new for me, just because new to Leigh Bardugo's author voice and basically new to the sort of contemporary YA fantasy genre. I've read a lot of fantasy, a lot of speculative fiction, and I read a lot more, YA sort of stuff when I was a little younger. But lately, it's been a while since I read anything like this. So it was a fun little breath of fresh air. So I guess I'll start by saying what I did like. I think, and that basically falls under the big umbrella of characters. I think Bardugo does a good job with her characters and her characterization, just in the sort of classic technique of jumping straight into the action so that you learn about them mainly by their actions and their behaviors and their interactions with other characters, but then giving you flashbacks to learn why they behave the way that they do. So anytime there was a character flashback where you learned a little bit more about their backstory, I think those were my favorite parts of the book. Kaz, I was like, who is this jerk? Why is he so grumpy? But once I found out, so sad.
Is that a tear?
Yes.
A tragic backstory?
Yes, I won't spoil, but he does, it lives up to, as, tragic as backstories can be.
He's a sad boy.
And Inej, her unrequited feelings for Kaz were fun. I liked Nina and Matthias as well. They're fun back and forth where they hate each other and they love each other.
Yeah, the best.
That was another thing where, again, I don't read a whole lot of books with that kind of romantic subplot, but I think it was done well. I think once you've established who these characters are with that, careful and precise characterization, then you just make them fall in love and know how they combine. Longer paragraphs of description, I also had in my notes as something I liked. Bardugo's long paragraphs of description, just really getting you into the world, especially the city Ketterdam. I thought that was the most interesting of the settings that we encountered. It felt like a sort of Amsterdam trading hub, sort of a Mos Eisley cantina sort of feel. And so just learning a little bit more about the world was fun. So I was pleasantly surprised just at her capability to describe things and at her prose. I think some of the reason why I maybe don't read a lot of YA is because some of the stuff I've picked up lives up to its reputation of being for, younger readers, because it's not got a whole lot of weight to the prose and just to the vehicle of describing it. It's some YA I think is about the plot more than anything, and this book definitely has a fun plot, but I think Bardugo is also showing that she knows how to write. So I always enjoy when authors do a little bit of showing off, but not too much. In terms of things that maybe I didn't like so much, well, I won't say didn't like, I'll say not my cup of tea, because I think you and I read a lot of the same books, but we also have our own little niches. Like, I don't think you have been as excited to read some of the Philip K. Dick books that I've been telling you all about.
Yeah, I like hearing your summaries of them.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would sit down and read one of them.
So yeah, I've been, and we'll get to that in the next video with my recommendation. I've been reading a lot of older stuff from the 60s, 70s, 80s in terms of sci-fi, fantasy, speculative fiction. So I think one thing that maybe wasn't my cup of tea was just the parts that felt most, I guess, contemporary, and I guess that's, you know, to be expected from a contemporary novel, but just some of the witty banter back and forth. It felt like I was watching I don't know.
Now finish your sentence.
Okay, I'm gonna start over. The witty banter, even though it was great, wasn't necessarily my cup of tea, because it's just a question of, you know, how the author wants to do the fantasy setting. But to me, those kind of modern phrases coming out of people's mouths who are, you know, ostensibly from a different world and a different time, it felt like, you know, these were just teenagers living in the 2020s sometimes.
I don't know about that.
No, okay.
I don't agree with that, but
Well,
to
scratch
each his
that
own.
from the record.
You're allowed
It's
to
hard
think
because
that.
I'm not citing my sources. I'm not even
Well,
saying
when
any
did
specific
you even
examples.
post? I don't think it was 2020.
It wasn't
I think it was like 2012 or something. 2015.
Okay,
So.
but
It just wasn't for you. That's not what
yes, and I guess
like
this
to
is
read.
a difficult thing because it's hard for me to judge, because if you read older books, everything sounds old, but if you read newer books and some things sound old and some things don't, it's only because you can identify it, because it's more familiar. You're like, okay, yeah, this sounds like a movie that was in theaters in 2015, right?
Yeah.
So it has that sort of contemporary voice. Just I don't know. I think that a lot of that's just the YA genre as well. How characters talk to each other.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I can see why it would be jarring to you to read this, because like you said, you've read so many older things, like classics and like things from the 60s and 70s. So to then read this, written in 2015, published in 2015, to be like, oh, well, this is so different from the terms and the flow of the words and stuff. I can see why that would be surprising to you. But for me, I won't even pick up on that because I'm so used to it, because I read so many things written in kind of the same era. Well, I read a lot of YA, so like I expect that. So to me, I'm just like, yeah, it fits in. But for you, it's like, what?
Yeah, and I think you know, just an enlightening part of reading this book was just reminding myself that, oh yeah, publishing and just sort of the way that the writing world operates. Books do follow waves and trends, and this is, you know, a book that has a lot of fun original ideas, but it's also operating according to the genre trends and waves and conventions that I'm less familiar with. So I had to, you know, sort of learn the language and get my footing in the YA world before I could say, okay, I know what this book is doing. I'll ask you, do you prefer the witty banter sections, or do you prefer the big, long paragraph sections?
I like both.
Okay.
But I think the witty banter is so fun.
Yeah.
Like, it's so entertaining.
It's definitely fun. It's fun entertainment fiction. I think it's just funny. It's a testament to, you know, how much I liked Bardugo's writing, that I felt like as I was reading, if I saw a big long paragraph, I'd be like, okay, this is a good one. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the pages where I get nice thick paragraphs where, you know, we're in someone's head or in their backstory in the past. But there was a lot of really quick action that I guess I just wasn't as used to, because I don't read books that have that quick movement so much.
I agree with liking the big paragraphs because she's so good at descriptions. It's really fun, like you said, to have a big paragraph where you can just like melt into the world and let her paint a picture for you. But then I also like the banter, because I think that goes back to characterization, what you were talking about earlier. How good she is with characters, that they really shine in these witty banter moments, where especially where it's like all six of them are like having this dialogue all together. Like I love that. I love when they're all fighting. Like when Matthias says something like, "What? Like I don't get it," and everybody's like making fun of him and stuff. Yes. It's really fun. Anyway, like you said, it's just like little. It's so quick and short, and it's like each character just pops in and says something. So it feels like you're watching a TV show or a movie or something. And I like that part.
And each character has a very clearly defined voice.
Yes,
so
that's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
That's what I did appreciate. You know, in those quick moments, she's constructed the characters in a way where she knows exactly how to use each character, which is, you know, what a good heist story is all about.
Totally.
Getting characters with different backgrounds, skills, voices, feelings, ideas, and then, you know, forcing them to work together.
Yeah.
My main question I had reading this book was that I wanted to know what the world was trying to tell me, if that makes sense. I know who these characters are, and I know about their, you know, their arcs, their growth, their setup and payoff to their tragic backstories, but I think I wanted to know more about the landscape, the setting, the fantasy world that Bardugo has created. I wanted to know more about what the sort of purpose behind that world was. And I think that's where I was probably looking in the wrong places, because it seems like this book is just a fun sort of spin-off to her larger project. But because this, you know, is the only book of hers that I've read, I knew a little bit about what was going on, because I'd seen the first season of the Netflix adaptation of Shadow and Bone, which is in the same universe, but different characters. But these characters do show up, even though they don't in the book.
Yeah.
So I was a little confused, I guess, about the world as a whole. Like, I knew how these Grisha work and you know what their whole deal was. My favorite fantasy are always ones where the world as a whole has like a project to it. Does that make sense? I've talked to you about the Titus books, Mervyn Peake, Titus Grown, Gormenghast. I love those ones because the world feels like the main character, if that makes sense. But here, that's not the case, so I shouldn't be expecting that. The characters are the main characters, right? It's about the characters. It's about their story, their growth, their trauma, lots of trauma.
Yes.
I guess I found myself wanting to know, like, not just how the Grisha work, but why do they even exist? Why the prejudice against them? Because this is, you know, a classic fantasy trope of, you know, people with special abilities and then people who hate those people with special abilities. And then the main, like, MacGuffin or whatever of the whole heist is this harem, is that? Which makes them stronger. So I was like, what's the purpose behind this whole, like, power stuff? I don't know.
Well, I
think the other books is where.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. If you want all these answers, you have to read the first trilogy.
It seems like there's bigger powers and players moving around the board, and I didn't know who they were. All I knew was these 6 guys.
Yeah, and then you also need to read the sequel to this, Crooked Kingdom.
That was another thing I wanted to say, and I think it was, again, just my misapplied expectations. For some reason, I thought that this would end with a nice little bow at the end, so reader be warned, it doesn't exactly do that.
That's my bad, because I forgot how it ended. It's been so long since I've read it, I don't remember how it ends. I assumed that it had more of a satisfying ending, because I remember I had to wait a while before Crooked Kingdom. So I didn't realize it was such a cliffhanger.
There are definitely some payoffs that feel nicely wrapped up. I think, like, I felt good about, like, Nina and Matthias had their whole, like, do they hate each other? Do they love each other? And by the end, I was like, oh, you know, it feels like their story has some resolution.
Yeah.
But Inej and Kaz and Jesper and his little buddy,
Wylan.
And I don't know, I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay. There's some.
There were big
yeah.
questions and big, targets, big hopes and dreams that I thought would get all tied up with a little bow that were not. And I guess that's to make you read the second book. But you told me the second, it's not so much, not all the characters are in it.
No, they are.
They are? Okay.
What did I say about it?
It must be the other, they
Oh.
show up in other books?
No, I was gonna say some of the characters from the Shadow and Bone trilogy show up in Crooked Kingdom.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I need to.
Yeah.
All these different storylines intersecting.
Yeah,
with
so
each other.
that book you might be a little confused when
Yeah.
people show up and they're like, hey, it's like a Marvel movie, like, hey,
Yeah.
but you're not gonna know who it is because you haven't read the trilogy.
Yeah.
But I could explain it.
Okay. Yes. I'll have to read the follow up and figure out how things get concluded because I did want to know more at the end. But I read it pretty quickly, I'll say.
You did, yeah.
I think it reads quickly, it's fun, very entertaining, very well characterized. Players that, like a good heist movie, a good heist story. They're all doing their part. They're all working together, and the reader knows how they work together because they've got these fun types that they play. And so you can say, oh yeah, he's the crime boss with a dark past.
He's the muscle.
Yeah.
She's the femme fatale.
Yeah.
They all got their...
He's the guy who loves guns.
Yeah. And he was your favorite, right?
Yes, Jesper was my favorite character, I think, by far. Just because he wasn't a complete sad boy, I guess, But he has some past,
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
But he was in it for the love of the game, it felt
Yes.
like. Yeah, so you like someone like that in a heist story. Someone who's just along because, they're really good at their criminal job. Here's my big takeaway from the book that I, have thought about it for a while since I finished it. Because again, I wanted more of to know what is this world trying to tell me? And I think the world isn't really trying to tell you something. It's the backdrop. She's using the world that she's already created in order to tell a fun heist story with a different set of characters.
Yes.
So, but what I did take away, what are the characters trying to tell me? What is Bardugo trying to accomplish with this book? Is that
drum roll.
Trauma can be overcome, or at least act as a motivator. You can use your trauma and steel yourself, strengthen yourself, and say, I'm so traumatized that I'm gonna steal a whole lot of money. I don't know, something like that. So many characters draw on their horrible experiences in the past in order to say, I can do this. I'm capable of, this big heist. All of them are proving themselves not to some outside force. They're not trying to pass some exam or defeat some dark lord or something. All of these characters are wrestling with their own demons in order to prove themselves to themselves. And I liked that. They're each sort of fighting their own battles internally while they're fighting the main battle of trying to get the prize.
Well said.
I correctly assessed the book.
Yes.
But I did like Bardugo's voice. I'll have to check out some more of her books in between all the other books I'm reading.
You're reading a lot.
I'm always reading 4 or 5 books at the same time. Do you have questions for me as a big Bardugo head, big fan of the Grisha-verse?
I would just like to say that I'm very glad you read it.
Okay, I'm glad too.
I love her so much. So I'm glad that I got to share her with you.
And
because
that's
I love
always,
you so much. So now it's
And that's always fun. I think that's what makes sharing literature fun, is that because literature is such a personal experience, because it's just you and the book. Once you share that book with someone else, someone you love, then it's like you've transplanted that little section of your mind.
Yeah. And I got to show you a bunch of memes on my Pinterest board.
Yeah, apparently the internet and Kaz, she really, I guess, this is not the first time someone has written a bad boy character and a bunch of teenagers on the internet have devoured him.
Yeah.
But I think Kaz is a well done example of that phenomenon.
definitely.
He is a bad boy. He kills people. I think I was a little shocked because usually bad boys in fiction, for young people at least, are, they're bad, but they just have like an attitude or something. He's a murderer. But then you learn his tragic backstory, like, oh yeah, it's okay, kill as many people as you want, Kaz.
Yeah.
Whatever makes your trauma go away.
So many of your favorite characters have also killed people.
That's true.
Okay? That's just kind of how fiction works.
Yeah. Violence is kind of just the currency of fantasy like this.
Yes.
I was surprised at just how bad this bad boy was, I guess I'll say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's super edgy.
Yeah.
It's an edgy book. It's
It
fun.
is.
And it has
Yeah.
black pages. Like, it's goth.
I did like that.
Yeah.
It's a whole experience.
It's very immersive.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun world to escape into, you would say.
Yeah.
Well, is that everything you got?
I think so. I liked it.
Nice. I'm glad you liked it.
So
I
now
loved it.
we need to hear what you thought with the other.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that.
My recommendation. An older,
Different.
very different,
Yeah.
but still, a fantasy novel for younger YA sort of readers.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for being my guest star
No problem.
in this video.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching.
Perfect.